The CIA had an endless budget. There was no such thing as an oversight committee to say, hey, this is a waste of the taxpayers' money. And I'll tell you what really was the motivator for the CIA is the Chinese were successful in planting disinformation in the CIA that the Russians were developing the same technology. So we were like, oh my God, we recruited this Chinese intelligence guy and he said the KGB is already doing it, we have to catch up to. The KGB wasn't doing anything. They'd never heard of this stuff. And then the Manchurian Candidate came out and freaked everybody out in the mid-50s. So the CIA spent millions and millions of dollars experimenting with everything from remote viewing to, UFOs and all this crap just lumped into one thing. And nothing ever came of it. I mean, this is how MKUltra was created, where, okay, let's start with LSD. There's this new thing called LSD that this Swiss scientist accidentally invented, and you can see crazy shit when you take it, and maybe we can microdose it to make people do what we want them to do, like under hypnosis, but without them realizing that they're doing it, and then we can double them back against the KGB, and then people are jumping out of hotel windows. And they're killing their families and losing their minds. And then as part of MKUltra, there was like MK Chickweed and MK Seesaw, and there was a whole bunch of them, like a half a dozen of them under MKUltra, where, we created a germ in a lab and we just blew it into the atmosphere in San Francisco just to see if anybody would get sick. And lots of people got sick. 11 of them were sick enough that they happened to need hospitalization. And it turned out that they all suffer from the same rare respiratory infection. And the doctors are like, where the heck did this come from? Well, the CIA had it in a big tube and they were shooting it into the fog. And they did it in San Francisco because the fog is heavy. And they knew that the fog would keep the germ close to the ground where people are breathing it in. And then the CIA said, you know what we should do? We should hire a whole bunch of prostitutes and rent a cat house, a safe house, and we get these prostitutes to bring Johns back to the cat house, and then we dose them with LSD and see if we can control their minds. These are American citizens. You can't just dose somebody with LSD and say, oh, let's see, is he going to go crazy? Is he going to kill himself? Is he going to confess to his deepest, darkest secrets? What the fuck is wrong with people? But we did that from 1952 to 1975. And then in 75, when the Church Committee realized that this program had been going on for more than 2 decades, Senator Frank Church ordered the CIA do not destroy the documents. And so they immediately destroyed the documents. There were about 20% of the documents that had been misplaced and were found later. So what we know about MKUltra today is just from the 20% that survived. Everything else was destroyed. And then they were like, yeah, well, they're destroyed. What are you going to do about it? That's the insane part, is it's such a fraction of the available information. And there's all of this stuff. And you think about stuff like the psychic driving stuff is so gnarly.
Right.
Well, now, compare psychic driving with the technologies that we have today, and you've created a monster. When the Vault 7 documents were released back in, 2017?
What are those?
There was a CIA computer engineer named Joshua Schulte, who swears that he's innocent, but is now serving a sentence of 40 years for espionage. He was allegedly a disgruntled engineer. He didn't like his boss. He didn't like his coworkers. They didn't like him. So he just downloaded the crown jewels of the Directorate of Science and Technology and sent it all to WikiLeaks in 2017. Google Vault 7 documents, Vault 7 revelations. It will knock your socks off. Thousands and thousands of pages. It makes what Chelsea Manning leaked look like, scrawl from a 6th grader. So he revealed that the CIA has developed technologies to, for example, remotely take over your car by hacking into the chip.
Right.
Why would the CIA want to take over your car? To make you drive off a bridge, maybe. to make you drive into a tree and kill yourself, to make you drive into an abutment and make sure that there's no way you can survive because they've got the thing going 140 miles an hour and you can't control it. They develop technology to reverse your smart TV to make the speaker into a microphone with this TV still appearing to be off. So you don't know that it's broadcasting everything that's being said in your house to CIA headquarters. They were able to hack into other countries' most sensitive technological systems and to leave little scraps of code, but the scraps of code are written in Russian or in Persian and Farsi. So people say, oh, the fucking Russians hacked into us, or the Chinese or the Iranians, and actually know it was us. But you'll never know it. I mean, there's almost too much in Vault Summon to even go into. It's incredible. I'm going to give a talk about it at a hacker conference this coming weekend. So, couple what the CIA was trying to do in the 50s with MKUltra and its subcomponents compared to what it is technologically able to do today, and it is terrifying.
Damn, dude. Yeah. That is gnarly. Going back to the psychologist.
My experience is universally negative. I've never had a positive encounter with Mossad. I have never met a CIA officer who has had a positive encounter with Mossad, because Mossad doesn't give two shits what you think or what you are trying to focus on in your job. They care only about Israel. And if that means shoving their fists up your ass or trying to recruit you or telling you to go fuck yourself while they try to recruit the guy sitting next to you or the guy in the defense contractor's office, they don't care what you think of them. Because for them, it's an issue of survival. They have nowhere to go if they don't survive. The thing is, they have a real problem balancing intelligence collection with political influence. Over the last couple of weeks, for example, a myriad of Western countries have begun recognizing Palestine diplomatically. The British, the French, the Irish, the Spanish, the Canadians, the Australians. Next week, it's going to be the New Zealanders. If you look at a map now, the United States is the only Western country that doesn't recognize Palestine. That says a lot. But we've allowed the Israelis to put us in a corner where we're either with them or we're against them, and there's nothing in between. And that's just simply not true. We should have as our goals U.S. national interests, period. I don't give a shit what Israel's national goals are. My job as a CID officer was to protect the United States and American interests and American citizens. If the Israelis need to protect their people, God bless, that's on the Israelis. But never, ever should we place ourselves second to any other country, ever, under any circumstances. There's a famous saying that there's no such thing as permanent friendships, only permanent interests. And we live that with every country in the world except Israel. We always put Israel's interests first. How is it in our interest to allow a genocide in Gaza, for example? It's not. If we're the shining beacon of hope for human rights and civil liberties, then let's be the shining beacon. Let's not pretend that there's not a genocide taking place in Gaza. There is. And this isn't John's definition of genocide. This is the United Nations. So I appreciate that the Israelis have a job to do, and they believe that it's a nearly impossible job, but that's not my problem. And it shouldn't be the problem of the CIA or the United States government writ large. So let's go there then. I mean, why do you think that there probably will not be retaliation? And if there is retaliation, of course it'll be against us, and we're more equipped to absorb Iranian retaliation than the Israelis are. But president after president after president has said, no, we're not going to bomb Iran for you, until Donald Trump said, yes, we will bomb Iran. So again, here's a president who wants desperately to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And my God is doing really well, right? Peace between friggin' Cambodia and Thailand, between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, between Pakistan and India. I'm flabbergasted at the success that Donald Trump has had in these hotspots around the world. But on Gaza, which is arguably the most horrific thing happening in the world right now. He just concedes to the Israelis. So if you're Donald Trump and you strong-arm the Iranians into going back to the negotiating table on the nuclear program after they swore they would never do it, they did it because you demanded it, but then you bombed them with the biggest bomb that humankind has ever seen, then what's the incentive for them to do what you want a second time? Why would they trust you? They shouldn't. I wouldn't trust you. And that Nobel Peace Prize, forget it, because we're going to head into a longer-term war now. Trita Parsi published a piece. We're in early August. He just published a piece on the 10th of August. You know, we studied that for a long time. They killed a guy in a hotel room in Dubai, and then after they killed him, they were somehow able to lock the door from the inside of the hotel room. And we tried like magnets and different ways. We couldn't figure out how they did like a latch door. They did the latch and this one, and the guy's in there dead, and the hotel couldn't even get it open. Yeah, they end up sending somebody in from the balcony. How did they do that? Very impressive. Wasn't there also something, okay, first of all, these Israelis never officially claim responsibility for that, but there was like 26 people that the Dubai CCTV footage picked up. Right. And in Dubai, they have the most CCTV coverage in the world, more than the Chinese. But none of them were picked up. No. And number one, people speculate disguises, but I don't know if this is true, but weren't the cameras Israeli made? Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. When I was in Dubai, I got a tour of the whole facility and the cameras were German. What facility? There's an underground, they have this very sophisticated, maybe we should put that, oh, are you sure? I'd like to keep it, okay, I'm going to be serious. There's an underground facility that the government of Dubai has that completely created by Siemens, the big German company. It's like walking into an IMAX theater, but instead of one 5-story screen, it's 5 stories of TV monitors. So you have hundreds of TV monitors that cover every inch of Dubai, every inch. So we're watching these. They gave us a tour. We're watching these and we see a taxi driver looking at his phone while he's driving, and he crashes into a telephone pole. And they were like, oh, there's a taxi accident at the intersection of this and that. And the taxi driver's rattled and he gets out of the cab and he's trying to gain his composure. And somebody runs up to him. We're watching all of this on the screen. Somebody runs up to him and then they call, I think it's 115 is their version of 911. And the ambulance is already on the way because we watched it happen in real time. So the operator's like, yes, the ambulance is on the way. The whole country's covered. You can't do that in a country like the United States, but you can do it in other places, and then you can intercept what's happening in those other places.
Was that while you're in AFAT?
No, I was in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee then. And it's funny, I went to Dubai to talk about how Wallace, you know what a Hawala is. The reason is AIPAC has them by the balls. I hate to say it. Trump, yeah. And not just Trump, but pretty much every member of Congress. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's the Israel lobby. Now, they somehow have convinced the government that they are just a group of Americans who really loves Israel, which of course is utter, complete, total horseshit. It should be registered as a foreign lobbying group, and it's not. But if you are an elected official in the United States and you are not 100% pro-Israel, they will primary you, and they have great success in defeating incumbents who express even the vaguest support for Palestinian human rights. I'll tell you another thing the Israelis are successful at is cultivating Jewish leaders here in the United States. Josh Shapiro, for example, I'm from Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro is the governor of Pennsylvania. He happens to be Jewish. Cool. No problem with that. But he also happens to be a veteran of the IDF, the Israel Defense Force. He went and did his time on an Israeli kibbutz when he was 18 years old, and he loved Israel so much that he joined the Israeli military. Okay, now you're the governor of Pennsylvania and you're one of the front runners for the Democratic nomination for president. But where do your loyalties lie? You have served the Israeli government. I can't trust you to keep the United States first. In your mind, you haven't served the American government, but you serve the Israeli government. That bothers me immensely. There were a couple of Congress people who were members of the so-called squad who gave speeches on the floor of the House that, this wholesale massacre of Palestinian civilians and women and children, it's just wrong. They were immediately primaried. Cori Bush, for example, in St. Louis, they threw her out on her ass. Jamal Bowman in New York, out. Why? Because they said, maybe the Israelis shouldn't be massacring all these women and children. Oh, how dare you? You must be anti-Semitic. And they throw them out. This is a very dangerous development for a foreign organization or an organization that supports a foreign government to have this kind of stranglehold on our government. So, somebody's got to say something. Somebody's got to stand up. And I think we're getting there. The rest of the world sees it. They're all recognizing Palestine, if only to put diplomatic pressure on the Israelis. And we're just not there yet. And we're standing alone. We used to have this joke every time there was a vote in the United Nations General Assembly, the vote was like 194-4. Right? And the 4 was always the U.S., Israel, Costa Rica, and Tuvalu. And then the whole world, the rest of the world was on the other side. Why? Why do we isolate ourselves like that? Why do we have to protect the Israelis and pretend that they're not committing war crimes or crimes against humanity? What's in it for us? Remember, there are no permanent relations, just permanent interests. And it's not in our interest to isolate ourselves